How's it going, guys? Brian Cusco here at Triple B. Today I'm going to be going over how I heat my snake room and how I heat all my enclosures. So it's going to get kind of hot today. You're watching Triple B TV. Alright, so first let's go over how I heat the snake room itself. And of course, as we do every time with these videos, disclaimer, I don't know everything. I'm still learning, and if you guys know something that I don't, please leave some comments down below. Let's get some extra feedback onto how everybody does things around here. Some people might be doing things better. I need to learn, so help me out, guys. And also, if some of this video seems a little basic, I realize there might be people watching who are still learning the basics about keeping snakes, and maybe you don't even have snakes yet and just doing some research. So I'm trying to make it as thorough as possible, but if it's not, I'm sorry. Ask as many questions as you want in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer them. I always reply to everybody.
What is an ectotherm? Leave your answer in a comment down below and check back at the end of the episode to see if you got it right.
Okay, I've got an oil-filled radiant heater hooked up to a Renko thermostat, and that Renko thermostat runs a probe up on the ceiling that I hang in the middle of the room here and picks up the ambient temp. And when the temp drops below a certain temperature, say below 77 degrees, it'll kick on that heater, and it also kicks on a fan as well that blows across the heater and kind of helps circulate that heat through the room evenly. And right next to that probe, as you see, I've got a humidity probe. And that picks up the relative humidity in the room and runs back to a herpstat, which tells the humidifier to kick on if the humidity drops below 55%, which is what I like to keep in the room. I find that all the snakes always have a nice even shed that way, and that's just what I like to maintain ambient. I found when I got 55% ambient in the room, in the tubs generally holds somewhere in the mid-60s, which is ideal. Alright, so now let's get into how I heat the enclosures themselves. I have several different methods. I use heat tape, either THG or FlexWatt. I personally find the FlexWatt to be a little more stable. That's just my own personal findings. I know everybody has their own feelings on it, but when I've been monitoring how they heat, it just seems the FlexWatt seems to be a little more stable. That's my personal findings. I use an RHP, or radiant heat panel, and I also use a UTH, or under tank heater. And all of these elements are always controlled by a thermostat. That is the one thing that I would say is an absolute necessity. Any of your heat sources that you're using to heat your enclosure need to be controlled by a thermostat. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up for failure. You might be getting away without using one for a long time, but eventually something's gonna go wrong. Your heat source needs to be controlled by a thermostat. Period. The safety of your animal depends on it. So maybe I should go over the basics of how a thermostat works. Basically, it has a probe that comes out and monitors the temperature of wherever that probe is set. Then sends that temperature reading back to the thermostat and tells it how hot the probe area is. And if it's colder than the temperature you set, it will send power out of the thermostat into your heat source until it gets to the temperature that you want.
It's time for slow motion day.
So for thermostats, I will use anything from a jump start thermostat, which is a relatively inexpensive little thermostat, an on-off thermostat that you can get on Amazon. It kicks the power on when it gets too cold, and then it shuts it back off when it reaches the temperature that you set it to. Then I also use some Varium electronics thermostats, and those use a pulse proportional, or they will pulse the power to keep it at the temperature that you set it for. And then I use herp stats as well, which I set to the dimming mode that kind of controls the amount of power that is putting out to the heat tape to find that temperature. I personally like the herp stats the best. I'll probably phase out everything to herp stats eventually. They've got very nice safety features where they will shut off if the temperatures get too hot, and you can set all these settings. You can set them to control humidity, you can set them to control your lighting, have them fade in the light for sunrise. You can get very detailed with them, and I really like that. The jump starts I use for my quarantine tubs that are basically temporary tubs, and I also use it on a tub that I keep for soaks in case I have a snake that had a bad shed, which is a rare thing these days, but it still does happen on occasion. And I will put the snake in there, set the heat so I don't have to keep going back and filling it up with warm water and warm water again. It'll just, the whole time the snake's in the tub, it'll keep that water at that temperature that I want it. Now with the radiant heat panel, I just have it screwed into the ceiling of my enclosure, and I've got the thermostat probe coming inside the enclosure, hanging against the back of the wall, strapped to the back of the wall so that it can't be moved. One very important thing about your probe is you want to make sure that it's in a spot where it can't be moved. If that probe comes off the heat source and it's reading a colder temperature than what the heat source actually is, say for example it comes off and it's floating in the air, it's not even touching your heat tape, that thermostat is going to keep trying to send heat to that heat tape to heat up that probe that's not even attached, and it'll end up cooking your snake. So you want to make sure that your probe is well secured to your heat source. I find that using HD packing tape or high density packing tape is a great thing to use. I hear that you don't really want to use metal tape because it can give you a false reading on your probe. So avoid that if possible. Now in case any of this stuff fails, I've got a backup system I use. So what it is a sensor with a probe that hooks up to your internet wirelessly. So you'll need to have wireless internet in your house if you want to use this system. But it's a great system because you can check the ambient temps, you can check the probe temp, and you can check the ambient humidity using your cell phone. You can send it so it'll send you a text message or an email if the temperatures that you set get too high or get too low, and then you can call somebody back at home. Eventually I'm planning to have a remote shut off to where I can actually shut things off and control them from my phone as well. It's just a great peace of mind to know that no matter where I'm at what time, I can check my phone and see exactly what's going on with my snake room.
We asked, what is an ectotherm? An ectotherm is an animal that depends on external sources of heat to maintain its body temperature. If you got that right and didn't have to Google it, good for you.
I feel like this has kind of been a lot of information. I'm a little all over the place with it, so if you guys have any questions, if I've missed something, please just ask questions down below. I will answer anything, any concerns you have. And please remember to subscribe. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, make sure you hit that button and do so. And share these videos if you like what you're seeing. And I'll see you guys again next week. Take care.